Welcome to the PCS Edventures Educator Spotlight Series. In today's sponsored feature story, we're exploring how students are learning to build and fly RubiQ drones in North Dakota. We caught up with Barb Sweet, a science teacher at the Lisbon School District, who tells us how her students took the lead.
My name is Barb Sweet. I teach high school science for Lisbon Public School District in Lisbon, North Dakota. This is my 28th year, and I teach dual credit biology. I teach chemistry. I have taught physics for this is my third year of teaching physics. I teach a class called Real World Science for like non-college bound science kids. And then I teach anatomy and physiology, which next year we're going to put in as dual credit as well.
Very nice. You are very busy. I can imagine teaching lots of students in lots of different topics. We've already chatted a little bit beforehand about this particular PCS program with the RubiQ drones, and I know you didn't seek it out, you didn't purchase it yourself, but it came to you in kind of a unique way. Do you want to tell me that story?
Yeah, so our elementary school principal wrote a grant last year and got a bunch of money from the state, and he was trying to buy just some STEM stuff, some robots and some things like that for his STEM class in his school. And I think it's mostly third and fourth graders. And I have 6 senior boys in physics. They're usually kind of the upper echelon of the senior class. And he came into my room one day carrying 4 plastic boxes and said, "These are drones and they're too high tech for us, so you can have them." And the boys' eyes lit up, and I split them into 2 groups of 3, and I said, "All right, let's play." So I did not seek the drones out, but my physics course, because physics is really not my strongest course. I have to work a lot at it. I have to spend a lot of time with it. And we do a lot of conceptual things like, hey, drones are perfect. Let's figure them out. Let's tie them to physics and essentially let's play with them. And that's what we did.
Okay, so what was your experience and once you started unpacking? And I know you had those 6 boys in your class that just kind of helped you from the beginning, right? Because you didn't really have any time to prep and plan everything. You guys just all started to dive in as a team. Walk me through that process when you got it. I know you said you didn't really have a whole lot of time to prep ahead of time, but they helped you out.
Yeah, no, so we were kind of right at the end of what we were, I don't remember the lesson, but we were kind of right at the end of whatever it was that we were working on then. And it was in December, which is kind of towards the end of a semester and kids are getting a little antsy and Christmas break is coming. So I just let them split into 2 groups and they were in big boxes. And so I was like, hey, let's open these. Let's see what we have. And that's what they did. And it was like Christmas, they open them and it's exciting. And there's an orange box and a gray box for each drone. So kind of a whole problem solving situation from the very beginning. There was no prep time for me. There was no, hey, let's just wait and I'm going to go through all of these things and then deliver it to you. It was more like, here's the stuff, let's figure it out. And that's what we did. And from the very beginning, from moment number 1, they each were like kind of took a role and took a piece of it. And I think they probably learned more from that than they would have had I had time to prep and say, this is what we do first, second, third. So it went well.
Sorry. And so did you end up using the teaching guide at all, or did you have that open and all of you just kind of followed along real time instead of, like you said, knowing ahead of time, okay, we're going to teach this day and that day? Walk me through that part.
So I did use the teaching guide. They weren't always the best about directions. They were more like, oh, this must go here, or this must go here. But they knew, because of course they can check, they knew that they were dealing with some pretty expensive high-tech equipment. So it was a little daunting for them at first, like, oh my gosh, we can't wreck this stuff. So I would kind of follow along in the teaching guide, but I did kind of let them take the reins so that they could problem solve and teamwork. And then when they would get stuck, I was more passive, I think, following them, but ready for them to get stuck with the teaching guide. Like, hey, here it says this, and what if we tried this? And so that's kind of the approach that we took. So it wasn't more of a teacher-led kind of thing. It was student-led, and then I stayed in the background with the teacher's edition, or not edition, but the teacher's manual, and then kind of tried to problem solve on my end of things by finding frequently asked questions or troubleshooting, or let's back up a step. Maybe you missed one of the directions. And then I would go to they had the cards, the different colored cards that they followed, which the teacher's guide has in them. And so I'm like, hey, maybe you missed, like, back up and maybe read this piece. Maybe you missed something. So that's kind of how we worked it. Instead of me leading it, I stayed in the background and followed along.
That's neat. Let's talk about some of the successes then, and some of those memorable moments or aha moments of this kind of more student-driven course, really.
Yep. So I did have them do the dronology. You know, I was trying to figure out, all right, if we're going to just kind of put these together, how am I going to give them any sort of, like, they need some sort of, not necessarily a grade per se, but yeah, you have to get some grades in the grade book. So when the principal comes in and goes, what have you been doing? There's no grades. Well, yeah, how do you grade that? So they did do the dronology class. And I thought they thought that was helpful too, as far as how to fly them. Our IT guy here at school has like 6 little $15 drones. And so once they got it built, I think the biggest struggle for us was getting the simulator on a computer that we could use. So that was kind of tough. There's some, like, maybe the wording, or maybe I didn't understand correctly. Like, oh my gosh, if we use this key, can we put it in somewhere else? Or do we always have to use this computer? Or how would we update if this is a one-time deal, whatever. So we kind of worked around that. And before we got that simulator piece going, and that was work that I had to do kind of in the background on my own. Before we got that simulator piece going, they used drones from up here at high school, and we flew them around the high school. But these boys were super engaged from moment number one. They stayed after school working on them. They're all involved in extracurriculars, and they were here early. They were in the library after school. So there were a lot of aha moments for them, as far as super excited about something they've never seen before. And a lot of aha moments for me, like letting them take the reins with it. Like, hey, look at how invested these kids are, because they're the ones who have to figure it out. They're not being told what to do. They just have to figure out what to do. So it was like, the whole thing was a really cool experience, and probably there was more learning taking place there than there has been by me standing up and, giving notes all day. So it was just a really cool thing all the way across the board. But then it was winter, and we ran into snow and wind, and we didn't understand at the beginning that we couldn't fly them inside, because we were going to take them to our gymnasium and kind of practice in there, and that was a no-go. That was a no-go. So then it was kind of, let's pause until spring. And that's what we did.
Were there some peer teaching moments or collaboration too, when they were tinkering with these and trying to build them?
In my classroom, like I said, there's 6 of them and me. I haven't seen this crew this invested in something all year. And we've done some pretty cool things. But Those drones, they thought that was cool.
Why do you think they are so vested into something like drones? What is the draw?
Well, they're out. I mean, they hear about drones in the news and they see drones. They have watched these drone races that I've never seen. They're like, oh, Mrs. Sweet. They go to these old abandoned buildings and they have these races and these things. And so I think it's technology that they've never really come in contact with in school. They've heard about them. They maybe have a drone here or there, but in school, it's not been something that we've implemented. So I think the newness of that, I think, was really what the draw was. And the fact that they were expensive. It was an expensive piece of equipment that they were allowed to use. So I think that was a big draw too. Like, hey, look at the opportunity that we've been given. So
that's really neat. And what was your favorite part about this program? And would you recommend it to other colleagues after kind of just diving in?
Yeah, I would recommend it. Like I said, they were super invested. When I think for me, there were two really big moments. When we first started building them and trying to figure out how to fly them, and those boys who, again, very smart boys, but involved in lots of things. And a couple of them aren't necessarily, like, I would say 3 of them love school and 3 of them are just, they're not, 3 of them are going engineering, 3 of them are going trades, which is great. But like 6 different avenues of investment in school things, right? But to see them all after school, when they could have just left, be here working on how do we get these to operate? How do we get these to go? How can we help me as the teacher? How can we show Mrs. Sweet how this would, like, the level of commitment that they put in was impressive to me. And then the second part was when we went down to the elementary school and they showed them off to the 3rd and 4th graders. That was super cool too. Like, they were excited about that and wanting to answer questions, and they answered a lot of really good questions from those kids without missing a beat.
What are some of the things that they showed them as they were tinkering around? And maybe was it some of the components and just how they're built? Because I know you mentioned they couldn't fly them with these younger kids, but they showed them how they are built, or what are some of those things that they actually went over?
So the way that we did it was the teacher of the STEM class took the actual drones down to the elementary school during her class period. And so they would look at the components and she kind of taught them that portion. And then my physics boys just got really good at flying them. And then being able to kind of answer some questions about how they work and the goggles and how the goggles work and the video that they took doing that, and maybe learning some maneuvers with them so that they could show that portion. So that was kind of done in 2 different pieces. And then again, because how do you assess what these kids have done and put it in the grade book? They had like a job for me, like, you have to take a video of, like, initially we were going to go the whole campus, but weather just was not cooperating and we have to move on. So we took a video of the kids. We have a little piece of turf down in front of our elementary school. So after we showed them how these drones work, then we took a video, like, kind of coming up and over the top of the kids. So that was kind of their capstone portion of the drones. So, as far as assessment goes, I just kind of watched how they interacted and how much time each one of them put in. So it's more of it was more objective than it was subjective for them. But I think they all just dove right in. So those were the kind of the two big moments for me. They can build stuff, they can put them together, that kind of, they can follow directions. That wasn't the big thing, but interacting with the little guys and then the investment that they put in after school, those were the big kind of holy, they really like this kind of thing. So
yeah. And what are some of those lifelong skills that they've developed from this specific program?
oh, it was not it I wouldn't say that the directions and all of the things were super easy to follow, and maybe they just didn't follow them closely enough, which might be, sometimes reading directions is not very fun. So they learned about the LiPo batteries. We actually, one of them, I think we overcharged it and it got fat on us. So we're like, oh my gosh, this is why we have these LiPo bags. And so they Googled how to like dismantle or disarm this battery, and they went through that whole process. That's a life skill. Like, hey, what do we do here? How do we, there was a lot of problem solving like that on the fly. They learned that actually just taking the drone out and flying it without doing the simulator was not good. So they came back and they're like, no, we need to spend some time on the simulator to figure that out. They took turns, doing that. There were two drones, two groups, but like I said, it was one big collaboration of just figuring things out. And I think in this day and age, when everything just seems to be like this on the internet for them, it wasn't that way. And they had to do that problem solving that's so critical.
Excellent. The last few questions are kind of just generic with STEM, and I'm excited to get your input because this is your life. What impact do you think STEM or STEAM, we're seeing a lot of that art element in a lot of programs, these types of education programs have on just students' learning and development across the board?
Well, I've been teaching for a long time, and education sometimes has to be boring. Sometimes you just have to disseminate the information, right? You just have to get it to them. But any chance you can get them up and out of their desk and moving with STEM types of things, I think is super important. I mean, I think it's invaluable to them as far as their learning goes. And so in my physics class in particular, that is more of a STEM class because I can't outmath the three top math students in our school. I can't outmath them. That's not my forte, but I can help them, take that knowledge that they have and kind of implement it into real world problems. So my physics class is more STEM. It's more conceptual instead of here's all of these equations that I know that you can solve. We sprinkle that in there, we for sure do, but I want them up and out of their desk. And I think doing something like these drones where it was more, here you go, figure it out. They probably learned more in that, 4 to 6 weeks, whatever it was that we spent on it total over the course of the last however many months. I think they probably learned more then than they did in any of the lectures that I've given them. And I think that's the important part of STEM education. Everything for this generation of students is right at their fingertips. And because of that constant stimulation, you're in the classroom, we're having to find ways to bring more stimulation. And I think STEM is the way to do that. These out of the box kits or moving and shaking and building and that kind of thing, instead of sitting and listening, because they're not very good at that anymore.
Very good. Yeah, my last couple of questions were just why would you give the advice to encourage other educators to try this particular program with drones, and then just any other STEM programs in general when educators just feel like they have their plate full, maybe their focus isn't STEM, maybe they're doing a lot of different things, or if it's an out of school program, talk to those educators that may feel overwhelmed as it is, and then trying to kind of just tackle one more thing.
That is 100%, a thing. We have so many things on our plate. We just become more than just teachers, right? North Dakota just passed the bell-to-bell cell phone deal. So now we have to figure out, how are we going to keep these kids off their phone all day? The mental health aspect of our students now is so different. STEM is scary, and it's one more thing. But I think if you can let the kids kind of take the lead on it and let them figure it out, they will surprise you. And then you find that it's not as hard, I guess, as maybe it seems. It's not as scary maybe as it seems, and it's not as much work as maybe you think it is. And when you can buy like a kit, like this drone kit or program, I think that takes a lot of that other work that gets piled on us away, because it's right there for you. And I think then you just have to take the step. You just have to try it. And then once you've tried it, you be like, oh my gosh, that wasn't nearly as scary or difficult as I thought it was, or it wasn't as much work as maybe I thought it was. So you just have to take the leap and trust that your students maybe are way brighter than what we give them credit for. Like, we're not the purveyor of the knowledge. They have a lot of skills that they will bring. And for some of those kids that are bored or acting out maybe because they're bored, they will take it and run, and you'll find a whole new person in that student. We do this same kind of thing with robots in my real world class, and they just shoot the moon. And that's as an educator, that's what you want to see, is these kids just show you their talent.
Well said. That's exactly what you shared. That was just perfect. A big thanks to Barb for the insights she shared and how Discover Drones is helping students develop career-ready skills. To listen to more stories from educators like you, visit edventures.com/spotlight. That's EDVENTURES.com/spotlight.